Good evening once again, everyone, and welcome to yet another edition of DMs with PM. It is an absolute pleasure to have you back for your Tuesday evening interactive segment. And of course, we are happy to have you here with us this evening. To those of you on Facebook and YouTube, welcome, and not forgetting our listeners via radio, Power FM, Fusion FM, GBN, Vibes FM, Karaku, We FM, and Star FM. As always, we ask that you share the live and give other folks the opportunity to be part of this session this evening. Of course, you know, it is called DMs with PM, and of course, sometimes the PM, for reasons, he will not be here with us, but as we said, the show must go on. And today is one of those days when, unfortunately, our Prime Minister is not here in person to answer your questions, but we do have another capable minister who will be here in his stead to do just that. And of course, it is an absolute pleasure to welcome Senator the Honorable David Andrew, Minister of Education, to DMs with PM. Is it still DMs with PM or is it DMs with Education? Which one? Which one are we working with? Minister, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here this evening, and certainly an honor to appear on the Prime Minister's DMs with PMs, and I look forward to the discourse we're going to have.
Listen, you have some extremely large shoes to fill today, so I hope you're ready and embrace everything that's going to come within the hour, the questions, and of course we have those listening and viewing. It will be an interesting hour, I can tell you that, so brace yourself.
Yes, I do anticipate. I'll do my utmost.
You drink alcohol?
Not to any degree that I'm proud
that
to talk
you need
about.
a shot?
Yeah,
No, okay,
certainly not.
So we'll be just fine. So we're getting ready to do just that, field the questions. But before we get into it, we have to take a quick commercial break. And then when we come back, it is DMs with the Minister of Education. Back in a bit.
Bay Leaf, another of Project 500 signature design. This 3-bedroom, 1.5 bathrooms, a beauty, spans a gross area of 1,073 square feet. Built with fully insulated reinforced walls and insulated roof, Bay Leaf is crafted for comfort, efficiency, and sustainable living. The design achieves 100% efficiency in its superstructure. Inside, you'll find low-flow plumbing fixtures, large windows providing maximum ventilation, and a 25% greater efficiency than current building code requirements. Spacious bedroom, an open floor plan living, kitchen, and dining area. It is true to its name. Bay Leaf brings comfort and peace the moment you walk in. At Project 500, we're more than just building homes. We're about building sustainable communities and delivering quality homes for all families.
And welcome back once again to our listeners on radio and of course our viewers on YouTube and Facebook. If you're just joining us, just a reminder that it is DMs with PM, and we're joined this evening by the Minister of Education, the Honorable David Andrew. So before we get into the questions, I mean, it is your first time, and a lot of the times you would hear folks saying, you know what, we see our representatives, we see our MPs, but we don't really know much about them. And behind the scenes, we made a little hypocrite on you. I was talking about, you know, big parish, growing up in big parish, St. Andrew. For some reason, people think I'm from St. George's. I'm not. I'm a big parish girl, proud, loud and proud, right. Granville in the building. And, you know, the minister not so far away from Granville. I was saying to the crew that I knew you then growing up, and you were always so studious. You and your entire siblings always had this, you know, studious look about you. And it's almost as if from since little children, you knew your whys and you understood what it is you were put here to do. You understood your purpose. Wrong, right?
Well, I'm not sure I would put it that way, but I mean, it's good to know that onlookers could have seen it since then, and I think there were some people in my life who probably had seen similar and probably who had directed. But what I can say, there was always a strong value attached to education. That for certain. And there was no day we could say, we're not going to school. There was no day we can say, we're not going to do homework. Any day we came and said, a teacher gave us licks, for whatever reason, we would be given 6 eggs to bring for that teacher, because that teacher was helping us according to our parents. So I think we had that kind of background, and so probably that came across as being studious. Yes, we were always attentive in class and did well. So I suppose that aligns well with what you probably had seen since then.
Indeed. Now speak to us a little about your upbringing, your village, and how was life for you then?
Yeah. I grew up in a village called Ladig, a village I'm very, very proud of, the home of Malcolm X and his grandparents. Yes. I actually walked the streets alongside the home of the grandparents of Malcolm X, through the Waterfall Road, heading to the primary school there, Holy Innocent Anglican. That's where I went to school. My parents, Eversley Andrew and Selina Andrew, they had 11 of us, married for all their lives until my father passed. I am number 7 of the 11 of us. Unfortunately, I lost one of my siblings only this year, this August. One of them I lost, who resided in Canada. But all of us are still alive apart from that one. So we grew up there with, we didn't have much. Our parents, my father was a farmer and a mason. And most days he would do both chores. He would leave home early in the morning. He would go and tend to the cattle, spend some time in the garden, and go off to do his construction work. And then on the evening, after work was dismissed, he would return, make sure the animals were okay, and came back home. My mother was a homemaker. And inside of all of that, we had a strong regiment of garden. So the nutmegs and the cocoa and the cinnamon and all of those things, we had to harvest them. We had to do the harvesting of coconuts and to make cupras, we'd call it in those days. In those days, they used to do oil and soaps in some of those early days. So we had to dry the coconut, cut them, dry them, carry the cocoa on our heads. All the produce, we had to carry them. So we had a strong regiment of gardening, hard work, discipline and values. We had to be respectful. We couldn't disrespect anybody in the community. And religious values too. Church. We had to go to church. That was not negotiable. And so that, forms part of what we were exposed to. One of the things I remember about growing up is that our parents didn't have plenty. In fact, I like to share with students that in my primary school years, I went to school without shoe, going to Holy Innocent. And because my parents never had. They didn't have all the time to be able to support us. But we went anyhow. And it wasn't uncommon in those days, by the way. It wasn't. That a lot of students...
Testify to that.
Yeah. A lot of students went to school without shoe, but the drive for education and the drive to learn was just there. Everybody wanted it. School was extreme fun. We played. There were days my parents had lands down in Ladig Stonehole, going down to Subies, so you can pass that route and go right down to Santopi Street, out on the Eastern Main Road. And on a lunchtime, we'd have to go down to meet them to get lunch. And when we got there, they were probably preparing an oil down, which was not quite ready. And so we had to probably suck a mango or drink a water nut and head back to school. Nobody knew in those days. Sometimes we drank some river water and head back to school, and we functioned as normal. I remember one day, went back to school in an afternoon, and then the teacher came and said, listen, we have to go to St. Giles. St. Giles was a neighboring school close to the Mount Carmel side. We have to go to St. Giles to quiz, and they need you. And in those days, after lunch, little specks of water on your feet from the standpipe. And they came and selected me to go and quiz for the school. I look back now and I laugh because we went, we quizzed, we defeated the school, we defeated St. Giles. And I remember one lady saying, boy, you make me proud. You make me proud. And she gave us snow ice. I was beaming whole evening going back across to Holy Innocent. So the upbringing was tough, but it built resilience. It built a discipline and a love for education for respectful living. And then we went off. I remember doing common entrance in those days. It was 2 days. We didn't have all multiple choice. We had to write.
We had to write.
And we had to show the working in the margin, and we had to do all of that. But we did it in 2 days. And passed and went off to the St. Andrews Anglican Secondary School. And for the first 3 years, I walked every day from Ladig
Ladig, the telescope.
to Telescope. It became fun because there were quite a few of us from Ladig. Nobody in Ladig didn't go to school, avoided going to school. Everybody went to school. The home of the Maguires, Elwin McQuilkin, and some of those guys who are icons in our community. They would have it no other way. We walked to school, we gathered in the evening, we walked back up. It was till I left, almost leaving Form 3, that my parents were able to give me the 50 cents needed
50 cents was a big deal in those days.
to pay the bus. 50 cents. And by then I'd gotten so accustomed to walking that I saved the 50 cents. We bought snow ice, we bought chip chip.
You bought
I don't know
Chip
if you
Chip,
remember
bought
Miss
some
Campbell
bun,
chip
Miss
chip.
Campbell chip chip.
Yeah,
the
we
best.
bought Miss Campbell chip chip. And we walked home happily, you know. But school was fun. But at the end of the day, got my subjects, went to TAMCC, and that's a whole other story.
But you didn't mention Miss Daniel's noise.
Oh, yes.
And the pigtail.
Oh, yes, Miss
And the
Daniels.
pig snout.
That's absolutely a must mention.
It's a big parish staple.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. The Miss Campbell was a little lower down. So you got Miss Campbell's chip chip, and you walk about 20 meters up, and you met Miss Danielle, and she had the good custard snow ices that you like.
And the pig snout and bread.
Yep. So it was a fantastic experience that I would trade for nothing.
So what is something about you that most people don't know?
I wonder what people don't know. I've lived my life relatively transparently. Most people in some circle or other will know most things about me, even the stories like shoe and all of that kind of stuff. Okay, so I'll tell you this one that probably many people don't know. I've still shared it. When I went to TAMCC, it was not even TAMCC, it was the Grenada National College. I lime ride every day from Grenville to St. George's. So I had to be up in Carlton Junction, close to your area, early in the morning, with the hope to get a lift to be down in time for 8:30. Most days it worked out, but some days I got dropped in Boca. Some days we got dropped in Grandetang. Some days we got dropped in Bolio or in Tempe Junction, and you had to try to figure out how you're getting another drop to get over to Tantine. And we did that, and there were occasions, I remember one occasion, rain started to fall heavily when we were going over the Grandetang. And the guy had a dirty tarpaulin in the back of the car, in the back of the truck. Most of the times was these Delta trucks. And I tried to pull it over. All the dirty water fell down on my shirt, on my jersey. And I said, I'm not going back home. So I went to school, TAMCC, and Grenada National College. With my dirty jersey, I tried to clean it off. And I said, listen, I'm not even watching that. So I pretend it wasn't there for the whole day. There was another occasion, I jumped up on a van, and as soon as I jumped up, the man said, I didn't stop for you.
Yeah.
That was one of
Walk
those
of
days.
shame.
Yeah. So as fast as I came on, I jumped back
down.
You know, but I look at those stories because they didn't break me. You know, so I mean, a lot of people don't know, and sometimes they think you're in this position, you're the Minister for Education, and they feel you just arrived there, and you probably woke up with a gold spoon, and everything was all set for you. Nowhere in my wildest dream did I think that I was ever going to be a Minister for Education. I always felt if I worked hard, though, I could be something good, I could be somebody great, I could do anything I want. I had that kind of thinking because I always felt if I worked hard and if I educated myself, there's nothing that could stop me.
We need to use you as an inspiration, like literally have you in the schools teaching and talking to students, because your story is relatable. And, sometimes students think, everything should be easy and we don't necessarily need to work hard.
Oh, yeah.
But hearing from the Minister of Education, the amount of effort and dedication and discipline that you had to apply to your life to get to this point, it is a story. We await that book. But before we get into the question part of things, getting to know you a little bit more, what was your first job and what did it teach you?
My first job after I left Grenada National College in the August in 1993. Yeah. was as a painter. Yeah, I know some people are wondering. Was as a painter. I actually started, I spent 3 months painting as an apprentice painting. And actually the house I worked on was a house in Granborough, inside that road close to the surgery, further in
That's
there.
that's my road.
Right. The contractor was, I still remember Mr. Lang from St. James, yeah. But I was contracted to help paint, and I remember they asked me to paint. They taught me how to cut the edges in the top of the roof. Bend the brush, boy. Bend the brush. My shoulders were breaking because I'm just learning. But they put me right up in the roof to cut the edges. And I'm sweating, but I took it. And I remember they said to me, boy, why such an intelligent fella like you come in to teach? I mean, not to teach, to paint. But I always felt I'd take it how I get it, until I got it, how I wanted it. A few months later, January, I was called and told there's an opportunity at the Grenville Secondary School to teach English and geography. And when I went there, the then principal said, no, we don't need that again. So I turned and went. And then the senior education officer at the time called me and said, listen, go back and tell them we want you to do French, English. I went. I got to teach French. Well, I taught French since then. I taught French for 10 years after at Grenville Secondary. But I taught integrated science, I taught history, I taught English literature, a number of areas. Eventually, after I returned from study several years later, I taught English and geography, which were the first two I was I had to teach. But I taught all of those. I became the head of the modern language department. I got involved in debating, coaching. I made IFCF clubs, inter-school Christian fellowship clubs, study groups. Well, I was a housemaster, and I became probably the most hated when it came to athletics. Because when it came to athletics, my house, greenhouse, Strawn's house, had to be the main house. I see some people laughing, yes. Greenhouse. But what was instructive about that is that when I got there, that house had never won a sports meet in the history of the school's existence. And I said to them, listen, we have to make it happen. When I became housemaster, we started to work. And the next year they came third. I said, yes. We are the main house. Everybody wants to know what's happening. And then about a year after that, we ascended to be the victorious house. And then for 9 years straight after that, even after I had left to go and study, that house continued to be the champion house. For me, that was one of the most rewarding and fulfilling experiences there. But there were several great experiences. I met difficult personalities, difficult students, difficult teachers, colleagues that, were not the easiest to work with. But I think I learned so many lessons there that prepared me for these phases of life that I'm in now. I think the foundation was there, and I owe great credit to the Grenville Secondary School for the wonderful experiences I've been exposed to there.
Speaking of experiences and students, we have a student online who seems to have you in mind still, she says, for sending her home for wearing high shoes and not 1-inch heel.
Oh, my.
Says that was a hard transition in Form 2.
Well,
so she still has you in mind for sending her home.
Well, I'm not sure if I need to apologize, but I trust you're doing well. And if you're doing well, I probably am happy. And happy with you. But I suppose the school has regulations. And high heels, I think, would be a distraction, probably a risk factor and all of that. So I may have sent her home to get it changed. And hope
but
that she did return.
But I think you're forgiven.
Yes, I do believe.
But on the other side of things, though, what inspired you to enter public service?
Well, teaching from that day on, I knew my calling was people. Yeah? People had to be at the center of my engagement. In fact, before I took the teaching job, I got an opportunity I was interviewed at the bank. But I didn't see myself sitting counting people's money. I didn't see myself in that frame. So when the call for education came first, I was happy that I didn't have to make a decision between two. And then I found that I just felt at home inspiring people. So I think it was born inside of that teaching phase. It grew when I found that there were several students who needed more help than just the content, the French, the integrated science. And I wanted to work more with their minds so that they could overcome challenges and they could realize their full potential even more. And that is what drove me off to study further. And then, I mean, I can talk about the other parts that led me to this, but going off to study in the areas of psychology, well, I did my first degree in general studies with a concentration in psychology, majoring in psychology. And then I did my master's in counseling. So I'm a professional counseling therapist. You know, interestingly, as I mentioned that, when I was going to study at the time, I was a qualified teacher. I had gone to Teachers College and became UE certified. When I was going to study, I was told I could not get study leave with pay because what I was going to study was not relevant to education.
Wow.
You heard the areas I mentioned, but I was told at that time that what I was going to study was not relevant to education. So I had to take no pay study leave, which I did, because I was reading the documents, I was reading the trends in the region, I was reading the speed, the education development documents.
You were a step ahead.
Yeah, and I said, these are things that are going to be necessary in our system. I can't resist the urge that I have to go. So I went ahead and studied without pay. I took a small loan, sold my car, took a small loan to cover part of the time I went to study, hoping that I'll get a job over in Trinidad and Tobago to keep financing me. And that is a whole other story.
Which we'll get into at some point. But we have to take in some DMs, and hopefully time will permit us to engage in a couple more questions, you know, getting to know you, because I think we've all learned quite a lot from you this evening, and it is indeed an inspiration. And I hope that our students or young people are listening and looking on and realizing that, hey, nothing in life comes easy, and you have to work to get to that level.
Sure.
I believe we have our very first DMs, and it reads, what efforts are being made by the government to support community libraries like the Grenada Community Library? Princessa?
Right. Well, thank you very much for that question. Several things are being done. We have community libraries that are state supported, and you have those like the Grenada Community Library, St. George's Community Library, that are more privately run. We pay the staff of the persons who are in the government-supported ones, like St. John's, River Sally, St. David's, I think St. Mark's, a couple of them. We pay the staff there. We pay their utilities. Within the summer, we financed a summer literacy program in the libraries. I think it was in Victoria, one of them up there, where over 100 or so students were trained, and there are other plans there. We have plans to supply all of the community libraries with computers to assist in their administrative duties. And in two particular libraries that have the space, I think it's St. David's and maybe St. John's, we do have plans to give them computers for the community use. So we are supporting them. In the case of St. George's Library, I know last year we gave them a one-off support of up to $120,000 to assist with their programming. So, I mean, I feel satisfied that we're assisting. And, I mean, these are organizations that don't necessarily report to us to tell us how they spend, or what they do with it, you know. But we support because we understand the cause. So we are doing those things, and we'll continue to.
We have another question from Ryan Lewis, and it reads, what is the plan for physical education teachers in schools as it relates to making them permanent?
Right. So thank you for that question. A physical education teacher is a teacher. He's a teacher that specializes in teaching physical education, just like I did French. And so they would fall within the regularization framework. We did over 300 already. we have another 100 and a few that's currently in preparation. That should capture most of the outstanding teachers who require regularization, and then that would bring us up to speed and we'll be current, so that persons will continuously be regularized after the 2 years or whatever probationary period is provided for. So I don't think there's anything different in terms of regularization for physical education teachers, because probably somebody could ask, what's the provision for the geography teacher or the science teacher? But it's the same once they have the requisite qualification. What I could tell you though, and I'm not sure if that's what the caller, well, no, he said in terms of regularization, but we are making special efforts to ensure that there is increased physical activity at school. So we're collaborating with the Ministry of Sports to have increased coaching support at schools so that we can have more physical activity. But teachers, physical education or not, will be regularized once they have the requisite qualification.
And we have another question from Colin Henry. In the marina industry, local workers are often underpaid or lack proper certification. Can Grenada implement local training and certification programs for marina-related skills?
Certainly. Thank you for that question. I think I could answer that from two angles. One, the National Training Agency already has standards for some of those programs, and through them, training can be organized. I know we've engaged them on time before for different programs as may be needed, and so more of that can be done. They have the industry standards that are internationally recognized, so that could happen through that arm. But also, there's a renewed focus and intent from the Ministry of Education and the government to reposition skills and technical education within the mainstream of education. So there's a current plan to build out a marine school, which would see all of the boat building, yacht care, engine repair, all of these things coming under the marine sector, fishing being taught, the business of it, the science of it, all of those things being taught. So there's an avenue from that angle as well to continue to ensure that skills are appropriately placed in our education sector, not as an afterthought, but as part of the main staple, so that persons can be appropriately skilled and trained and then receive the appropriate remuneration and not be underpaid because they have the certification that's internationally recognized.
Fantastic. And another question, unknown. As a teacher, I would like to know when compensation will be provided for a completed master's degree.
Right. So I know there was a collective bargaining agreement many years ago that spoke to teachers receiving, I think it was an incentive allowance for completing studies in the masters. Okay. Somewhere along the line, I believe there was some cessation of that, and that's before our time. So there has been some consideration for reinstituting it. The ministry, today we had a management meeting, and that was one of the issues that came up actually. So there is current consideration for refining the framework to have it reinstituted. It's going to be done, but there are always considerations to put in place, and that's why a framework has to be put in to make sure we know what's likely to happen down the road, what's likely to happen if somebody else, the next person, and the cost implications for that, and how we budget for it appropriately. So that's coming, but we just want to do it properly and budget so that we don't run ourselves out of spending.
And we will take a quick break, but before we go, don't forget that you too will have the opportunity to ask the Minister questions by calling 423-3104. Again, 423-3104. So we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have some more questions for the Minister of Education.
Cinnamon, one of the signature designs of Project 500. This 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home spans 1,122 square feet, crafted for sustainable and modern living. The design features efficiency in wall, windows, and roof, engineered to reduce your overall electrical consumption by minimizing heat buildup. A cooler building on those hot days. Inside, you'll find low flow plumbing fixtures, which reduces water usage. Efficiency without sacrifices. With 3 spacious bedrooms, this design offers a retreat for all members of the family. With an open floor plan comprising of dining, living, kitchen, dedicated laundry, utility closet, water storage, solar panel, and parking for 2. And an area for outdoor home gardening. The Cinnamon balances functionality and style. And Project 500 is more than just building homes. It's about developing sustainable communities and delivering quality homes for all families.
And welcome back once again. It is DMs with PM, but this evening it's DMs with the Minister of Education. And of course, like we said, we will be taking to the streets to get some DMs for the Minister.
I am Joshua Shez. I teach IT at SAS. The concern I have as an IT teacher, what systems are in place to ensure that the laptops that the students are getting, they are safely kept, they are not sold by the students or even the parents, and security, being able to prohibit them from websites, illegal websites, maybe even things like online gambling and these kinds of things.
Right. Well, thank you. Thank you for that question, Mr. Shares. In the past, the ministry has tried to lock laptops, restrict sites. What we found from as low as the primary schools, not laptops, they were the tablet devices, students were hacking them. From as low down as in the primary schools, students were breaking the codes and still doing whatever else.
We have brilliant students.
Oh, yes, we do. Make no bones about it. So I think for me, the real pitch is for us to teach responsibility. In fact, in my address to the students, I talked about values. Because that's where we have to get this thing. Because we cannot get enough policemen or enough monitoring officers to monitor the thousands of students who would have laptops. Yes, we could put blocks from the ministry. That's been tried before. It did not work well enough. So we are putting more emphasis on teaching values, teaching responsibility. So we had the students, for instance, say the students pledge as receiving the device, to use it responsibly. And we'll continue to do that and continue to push that. But I think the greater responsibility is for all of us, parents as well as students, to emphasize values, respect for self and others. David Andrew, if he has good thoughts and good thinking and good values, whether he is on a laptop or he's in his class alone or he's with a teacher, he's going to display those. And that's what the issue really is about. That's what genuine learning is. Education is not somebody holding a big stick over you to make you do what you think is right. It's about getting to the place where you recognize, listen, this behavior is appropriate, this behavior is good for me, it's good for my society, I will do it. I want to do it. Somebody must be behind you to pick up, to not throw the garbage out on the ground. You must understand it's part of your civic duty, just an example. And likewise, while we can do stuff at the ministry, it's more important, we believe, for persons to learn the values associated with responsible use, teach the etiquette surrounding the use of the computers and online so that we have responsible usage.
Okay. We have another DM from the street.
My name is Giselle Legard. I am a Form 1 student of Hillsborough Secondary School. And my question I would ask to the minister would be, what would happen to our education with the laptops after we hit Form 3? Like, would we have to give back the computers, or is there another way that they would give us devices into another form once for our education?
Right. So thank you, Ms. Legard, for that question. The laptops you have will go with you. So you will not have to return the laptops, I'm happy to report. You'll get to keep them. I think what we will need to flesh out is the changing e-books that you will need. You will need a different set of ebooks because your book list will be different in Form 3. So that we will work out, but the laptop will be yours to keep. So take care of it because, you'll get to keep it for the rest of your school life. And it's good, strong military grade. So you get to keep them. So you won't have to worry. And what would happen to the Form 1s, when the Form 1s come in, they too will receive. So actually we're phasing it in to make sure by the end of another 2 years, all students in the secondary school will have and will continue to furnish the Form 1s with that.
Okay. We have another DM from the street.
My name is Kishela Olat. I'm from Bishop's College, Carriacou, and I have a question to ask. Is there any plan to put a fan or AC in the school because after burial it's making very hot?
Extremely hot.
Well, thank you very much. Is there an active plan? I can't tell you yes, but what I could tell you, once we are aware and once it's reported to us that we have challenges, we do our best to address them. We did discuss at the ministry looking at the possibility of air conditioning several of our schools, but that's going to come with planning, it's going to come with budgeting and preparation for that, as well as the smart boards and all of that kind of stuff. So these are things that we have in mind, but obviously the schools would have to be retrofitted to accommodate because most of them have louvers and decorated blocks. So in some cases we would have to do some retrofitting to see that plan realized. But certainly we can start with the laboratories and those special rooms for special purposes, and that's already in plan and thought at the Ministry of Education.
Thank you. I believe we have our final DM from the street.
Hi, my name is Nalia Stewart. I'm from Hillsborough Secondary School. We want to know if we can get a netball court because after burial, the netball court has mashed up.
Right. Well, we are interested in you getting the netball court. So what I can promise you, I probably will talk with my colleague from Carriacou, and we could discuss how best we could support you and the other students from Hillsborough for the reconstruction of the netball court. Certainly the Ministry of Sports, in fact the government was on a plan to renovate most courts, basketball courts around the island. So it's not something that's very far from our current programming and thinking. But in terms of the specific court you're talking about, I don't know that I have the details on it, but certainly we'd follow up and I'll talk with my minister colleague to see how best we could support you there.
Okay. And I have two questions on my end, one of which is, will the laptop program be evaluated to ensure its efficiency and effectiveness in the education sector and by extension, Grenada's social, human and economic development?
Yeah, certainly. In fact, to get the laptops approved, we had to develop an entire strategy, a policy. So we didn't just distribute the laptops. There was a policy detailing who was responsible for what, how is it going to be, timelines. So the evaluation is part of it. We have some ICT officers who are assigned to schools. They're responsible for training. There is an inbuilt monitoring mechanism that will be involved as well. So yes is the answer to that question.
Okay. And second question is, can the minister please contrast the current laptops and ebooks program with the predecessor program? I believe there are some important distinctions between the two which should be highlighted.
Well, certainly, I'm happy to do that. Because we had, for one, we didn't have laptops before. We had tablets. Mm-hmm. The quality, most people will tell you, was under par, substandard. My daughter had one, she never used it. There are several people who said they broke. Every day we had dozens of devices coming back into the Ministry of Education for repair. That's one of the reasons we're not going back in that repair thing. And we had to deploy our resources continuously to this recurring expenditure to keep repairing laptops. And some people have never gotten them back. So the quality was poor. And then the other part of it, we had ebooks. But the ebooks were not aligned. They were content material that it was hoped was on the same level with the material in the textbooks. But they were not the textbooks. So teachers now had to go in two different sets of material to teach the students. They had to go in the regular textbooks, and then they had to go on the ebooks and always compare pages. And that resulted in very, very low uptake. But what we're having now The ebooks that we have are the actual books that are on the book list. So when you see Agricultural Science for the Caribbean, if on the book list, when you go to the ebook, it's Agricultural Science for the Caribbean. So you could actually scroll the pages. That's the book. So that for me is a significant advantage. And that's a 3-year lease agreement that we have with a licensing agreement that we have with the provider, Book Fusion out of Jamaica. But the quality of the laptops too, we are told it's military grade. Those that are resistant to bounces and knocks and routine wear and tear, and it should give us a lot longer lifespan. So I think those are significant differences when you looked at the memory and the storage and all of that, and the capacity to do creative work. All of that makes the device a whole lot more superior than anything we've had before.
Okay. And we still also have to encourage the students to take care of it.
That's right.
Despite all
That's
the
right.
military grade. We have to ensure
And be
parents
responsible.
and guardians to be responsible with
Correct.
that as well. Folks, we are due for another break, but just before we go, we want to remind you that we'll be entertaining your calls when we return, and the number is 423-3104. And this is your opportunity to speak directly to the Minister for Education. Quick break, and we'll be right back.
It's like the water pure and clean. It's a comfort anytime you need it. It's for everybody, fresh and green. You can count on us, there's nothing like it. It's homegrown. It's island pure. It's homegrown.
Bay Leaf, another of Project 500 signature design. This 3-bedroom, 1.5 bathrooms, a beauty, spans a gross area of 1,073 square feet. Built with fully insulated reinforced walls and insulated roof, Bay Leaf is crafted for comfort, efficiency, and sustainable living. The design achieves 100% efficiency in its superstructure. Inside, you'll find low-flow plumbing fixtures, large windows providing maximum ventilation, and a 25% greater efficiency than current building code requirements. Spacious bedroom, an open floor plan living, kitchen, and dining area. It is true to its name, Bay Leaf brings comfort and peace the moment you walk in. At Project 500, we're more than just building homes. We're about building sustainable communities and delivering quality homes for all families.
Welcome back, and of course, this is where we get into the call segment. And again, 423-3104 is the number to reach the minister. We have a caller online. Caller, good evening and welcome.
Good afternoon, Aruna. I just want to speak with Minister Andrew in French just for a second, okay?
Ça va me fait beaucoup plaisir.
Est-ce que vous êtes prêt, monsieur?
Est-ce que je suis quoi? Répétez?
Est-ce que vous êtes prêt pour parler avec moi en français?
Oui, tout à fait. Je suis toujours prête à parler en français.
Ok, je m'appelle Vicline.
Oui.
Je suis grenadienne.
Oui.
Je suis grenadienne.
Oui.
Je suis à Grenade 2012.
2012, ok.
Pour le moment, 2012,
Oui.
pour le moment, j'habite au Canada.
Oui.
Je suis un citoyen du Canada, mais j'ai juste une question.
Oui. Allez-y.
Est-ce qu'il y a quelque chose que vous avez fait pour les enfants qui terminait ou quittait l'école plus tôt. Si on étudiait aller à l'école, mais après 1 à 2 ans, les étudiants terminaient l'école, est-ce qu'il y a quelque chose pour les faire? Pour donner les enfants d'aide pour son éducation?
Bon, merci. Merci bien pour votre question.
Ok, et je m'excuse, mais je suis en pause. Pour le moment, ma pause est finie. On va parler la prochaine fois. Bonne soirée et félicitations à vous pour le programme ce soir.
Merci bien, merci bien.
Ok.
Ok. So,
aussi, je m'excuse aussi, dit Madame Arona, elle est très, très, très belle.
She says
Okay,
you're
I'm
very
interested
beautiful.
in the part about my name.
She says to tell you you're very beautiful.
Thank you. That was a high level of showing off, by the way. I felt like, when we were growing up and our parents would speak patois, so we wouldn't know what they're speaking about. This is how I felt, but wonderful job.
Je m'excuse. Au revoir, monsieur. À la prochaine. Ma pause est finie. Je suis au travail pour le moment. Okay?
Au revoir, à la prochaine. All right.
Thank you.
So
Can you summarize that
yes,
for
certainly
us?
I can. So she's asking, well, she's a Grenadian. She left in 2012. She's a citizen of Canada, but she simply wanted to ask what provisions we have for persons who might leave school early. Yeah? So that's the text of her question. And certainly we don't want people to leave school early because we want them to get what's fully available. So we've even extended the school age to 18, the mandatory school age to 18. And that to ensure that people get available training, because people leaving early generally leave without the appropriate skill sets. So we want to make sure they stay a longer period of time in school to get those skill sets to be more work ready. And for that reason, we are building out a number of centers of excellence within the mainstream. I just mentioned a while ago the Marine School, but there's also going to be an Agriculture School of Excellence, Maribo. There's also going to be a Construction School of Excellence with an emphasis on furniture making for now. There'll be other areas of specialty as the market requires. And the hotel and tourism sector. These are the 4 that we are working on at the moment to fit into the world of work. And so from as early as Form 3, when this gets going, we would have students being able to make that choice to go into technical and vocational education in those centers of excellence, regardless to which other school you came from. So that is part of the plan to deal with this thing, rather than have almost the ad hoc kind of training. But there are other groupings that do different trainings. The Ministry of Youth, they do trainings, but persons under 18 are mandated to be in school, and so we cater for them through those means.
I actually enjoy that. This was something different and refreshing to the program. So we have a minister who not only talks the talk, but walks the walk.
Yes.
I really enjoy that. Do we have another caller online? 4233104 is the number to reach our Minister for Education. Caller, good evening and welcome to the program.
Hi, good night. I just want to ask the first quick question.
Sure, go right ahead.
You talk about inclusion in education. And I would like to know what is in place for the teachers in special ed school that have a disability and they don't have the ability to go to teachers college because there are no accessible devices for them to learn, those who are blind, those who are deaf, so that they can further their education and be qualified to be regularized into the system. If we're talking about inclusion here, we have to give these persons equal opportunity. So what is going to be done for them? And we know that there are already those in the system who are leaving soon. Do we have any plans for them when it comes to retirement? I understand a number of them would leave with basically nothing. What is in place for these people?
Right. So I think today that was one of the discussions we had at the management meeting, because there are always those matters that you have to keep addressing. We certainly, thank you caller, we certainly want to do our best for all of our teachers and people with these special abilities. I think 2 particular instances came up in my discussion today. There's one who's visually impaired, but they teach. You don't get that combination of skills easily. So there are cases that we are going to consider, and certainly we will continue to discuss with, we have Dr. Auld, who is the Deputy Chief Education Officer for the Special Education Unit, and she's always advocating. But we are open to doing what is required to see them get that kind of equal opportunity. It's obviously an area that we might need to do more work in, and we take that. Because often when $1 to spend and everybody wants a bit more of it, you always have to look. But we are committed to doing and giving and doing right by our special needs teachers as well, and ensure that they get whatever benefits. And certainly the teachers who have been there long in the service, we will consider their cases, and if they're close to retire, we will look at their cases very specifically and make some determinations as the Education Act might allow for.
We have another caller. Caller, good evening and welcome.
Hi, good night. I have a question for the minister. I'm not sure if he's taking any questions or if it's questions in regards to the laptop. But I have a question if he's able to provide an answer.
Go right ahead.
I'm a mom of 5. I applied for the voucher prior to school closing, and to date, I never received any assistance, and I tried to follow up several times. Even the principal of the school said, and to date, I still haven't gotten an answer as to what happened. So
Okay.
I'm not sure if you'd be able to answer that for me.
Okay. Well, I certainly can, but before you leave, I'll be happy if you leave your contact with one of the program organizers and your name and contact so we can make contact with you so that we can follow up in a more specific way. Or you can send a message to the same number that you just called, a WhatsApp message indicating your name, school, and the contact so that we'll be able to follow up for you. But a number of things could happen with that program because what this is a computer-generated QR code. So at sometime in May, April, May, June, we start gathering the data from the schools and parents. You go to the schools to get that information collected and sent to us. And it's populated in the computer system, but every bit of the data has to be correct. Because if any bit is incorrect, it could generate an error. So if you have 2 children, for instance, and she said she had 5, so here's a typical possible error. If you have them in different schools, one in secondary, one in primary, and your name comes up twice in the system, it will show as though that's a fault, but your name is coming up for the child in secondary school and for the children in primary school. So these are little bug fixes that we've had to undertake to tidy that up, to make sure that these glitches don't affect people. Sometimes some people's telephone numbers aren't working when you try to send a code to them, or they changed phones, or somebody said my phone fell and so there's a new number. So several of these things could affect persons receiving it. It's not a case where we don't want to give it. We certainly will do our best to ensure that you do get it once you still need it. But it's a program that's available for everybody, and I apologize if you didn't get it in time.
So, caller, please follow up and send a message to the number that you just called, indicating what you just told us. We have another caller online. Caller, good evening.
Good evening, Aruna.
Hi, how are you?
Excellent. And good evening to your guest, the Senator Honorable David Andrew. Yeah?
Good evening, sir.
Go ahead with your question.
Yes. I have a question. If I repeat myself, sorry, I just tuned into the program, yeah?
Okay.
Yeah. Ms. Senator, I want to speak about the regularization of teachers, yeah? There is a young lady that's teaching for almost 10 months now, and she do not get a salary, not even a stipend. And they keep telling her she's in the system. What would you do for people like that who've been teaching for a year and not getting a salary? What is the procedure? What is the process? Or what taking the ministry so long to at least give them something so that they could pay bus, buy food? Because you cannot be going to work for a year and getting no salary.
Right. Okay. So
thank you so much.
What is the problem then?
Thank you so much, caller.
Thank you, caller.
Yeah.
There are so many different levels at which this could have a challenge that I can't say for sure. What I could say, similarly, if a name and the school and the contact can be sent, we'll be able to follow specifically. Usually, there could be any number of different challenges because we have to go through, there's a leg with DPA, a leg with PSC, and I'm not sure where the challenge could be, or if there was some anomaly, if there was some outstanding documentation, I can't tell. But it's not the norm that it takes that long. And I guarantee you we don't have extremely many teachers. In fact, of the large number of persons we had to reappoint or appoint this season, you see it almost pass seamlessly. So it's not usual that happens. But we'll certainly investigate if we have the correct name and information.
Okay. So again, probably the person who just called can leave their contact information, etc., regarding the teacher in question. Do we have another caller online? Oh, kidokes. But while we await that, Minister, there's one thing that has been in the public sphere for the last couple of weeks, and that is to do with bullying in schools. And it seems to be an issue. So from the ministry's perspective, what is your stance on that? And what are we doing to curb this, the bullying that we're seeing?
Right. So, as a minister, as a person, as a father, as a psychologist, we don't tolerate bullying. We cannot support bullying at all because the effects of it are very severe. And sometimes you don't see it, but it breeds violence. It breeds anger and animosity that can be fleshed out in aggressive ways to other persons. So we don't support that. At the Ministry of Education, we have a Student Support Services unit. So we have our counselors, and they are responsible for doing both preventative and remedial counseling. So they do preventative by way of guidance counseling. So each of the counselors is supposed to do some guidance counseling sessions. They will do things on academic development, career development, they will do personal social development. So they talk about conflict, how you handle conflict. So they do these sessions. And what's instructive about that process is that when they do those sessions, they are mindful to pick up on hints and signs from persons within the class who might need further follow-up. Yeah, so in that doing, they prevent persons from going over and falling over, and they catch people who are already falling and are able to intervene. So we hopeful that that works, and if the case becomes too severe, there's a referral mechanism, so that the counselor in the school can refer to his or her supervisor, who is usually more highly trained, at least to the master's level. And if that becomes difficult, they can refer to the Director of Student Support Services at the Ministry of Education. And if that becomes difficult for whatever reason, whether the person knows the counselor well or not, or it's in the same church or the same community, and so they don't feel comfortable, we have partnered with several other agencies from time to time to get help, including SGU, including Legal Affairs, some other entities that we partner with should the need arise. So we work that way. But I want to also say, you see, school reflects what is happening outside and around us. And somehow some people think that school is a magic place. It ain't. School is not a magic place where you just get rid of every behavior. If it was so, I mean, it would have been easy. Everybody would pass math. Yeah?
Agreed.
But it's not that. And so students reflect largely what they see happening in the wider community. And so the bullying, we have to check ourselves as an adult community. If I bully, my children will think it normal. If I have no regard and no respect for others, my children will find it normal. And younger people would look at me and think it's normal. And they would display the same thing in schools. So I always want to point a finger at us as the adults. Whenever we point to the schools and to children, I want to point a finger at us as the adults and say, what have we done as a society? Or what are we not doing that allows this to continue? I challenge every parent out there, because every child has a parent. And I take personal responsibility to ensure that my child shouldn't. I take personal responsibility, I'm saying. I'm not saying they're perfect. Every parent must do the same, to make sure that we teach the right values, because the values don't drop down from thin air. And if we don't push the values of respect, and if we don't model good conflict resolution skills, and sometimes we don't have it, but these are the things we need to find and develop ourselves with, so that we can model the correct things to our own children, and that will be reflected in the schools as well, and make the jobs of the schools and the counselors a whole lot easier.
Well said. Well said. I believe we have our final call. Caller, good evening.
How are you?
We are good, thank you. Go ahead with your question.
I was just wondering if the minister can speak a little bit on any ministry's plans to introduce skills to our special needs schools.
Thank you.
Right. So the introduction of skills to special needs schools, I think a lot of that has to do with the determined capacity and interest of the students. It's an area, obviously, I think we can do some more careful looking into, but our department at the ministry, they're always mindful about getting students to learn as much as their intellectual capacity allows. For some persons in special needs institutions, it's about getting them to function normally, getting them. I know there are a couple of people who work in some spaces based on the skills that they've been taught. So probably there's an opportunity to focus some more, but I don't think it's something that can be done just in a vacuum. It has to be in concert with careful assessment because, yeah, make no bones about it, skills education is costly. And there are persons who have disabilities that function in schools, do CSEC, pass CSEC, and there's an integrative approach to have them mainstreamed and supported in schools. So there's a group of itinerant teachers that go around and support them while they do the same things that other students do in some of the mainstreams. And in the case of where they're institutionalized in a particular school, a lot would have to do on the capabilities, the intellectual capabilities as assessed by the department.
Well, Minister, there goes our hour. I must say the Prime Minister will be proud. I am certainly proud of the way you handled yourself and being your first time on DMs with PM. I think he would definitely say thumbs up on a job well done, at least from my end.
Right.
I hope the listening and viewing audience feel the same way. Well, it's about time for us to wrap up, so I'm just going to give you a couple seconds to do so, and then I'll come back and wrap it up.
Right.
myself.
Well, thank you very much. It's certainly been an absolute pleasure and honor to be on the program. I was happy to share all the various bits of information with the public and to have responded to the questions from the street, to have responded to the different segments. I'm really happy. But I just want to say later this week, Friday, we have the award ceremony for the first generation scholarship opportunity awards. That's going to take place. We have some over 60 plus persons who are first generationers, persons who nobody in their family has gone to university before. And we have a partnership with Monroe University, the government of Grenada, and Monroe University. We have a partnership where we give the opportunity for one person in that family when nobody has gone to university before. And the government pays for that in partnership with Monroe University. Some 60 persons will receive those awards, and we're very, very happy about that because that is in keeping with the government's plan and goal to have at least one university graduate in every household. Now, this is very strategic because we believe that once you get a family to appreciate that somebody within that poverty-stricken home, like I came from, somebody who has 12 children, who have 8 children, but one of these persons could get the experience of going to a university and recognizing, hey, I could do this thing. I could get 4.0. I could get 3.9. I could literally complete a degree. That changes the dynamics in the whole family. And this, we believe, will be instructive in transforming the entire society as we go forward. So I just wanted to remind the audience of that. And
I want to remind the audience that our Honorable Prime Minister will be celebrating his birthday tomorrow. Well, depending on where he is right now, it's already his birthday. He's a Libra, right? What's his sign?
Yes.
Nobody here knows Libra signs?
Yes.
We don't do signs?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I'm Libra too, so he is.
Okay, so he's a Libra. So I want to take the opportunity to say happy birthday in advance to the Honorable Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell, and maybe Minister, you could probably do it quickly before we go.
Well, I actually messaged him already, but I'm happy to say it publicly. Prime Minister, have a happy birthday. I want your entire year to be filled with blessings, protection, God's grace and continued wisdom as you continue to lead this country with wisdom and with grace. God's blessings upon you. Happy birthday. Oui, et je peux te dire ça en français. Bon anniversaire. Je te souhaite une année complètement avec la sagesse de Dieu et toutes les bonnes choses. Joyeux anniversaire.
So from the entire production crew, we want to say happy birthday. Nobody's going to sing happy birthday? We just talk, we don't sing? Okay. Again, thank you so much, everyone listening and viewing. For those of you who stayed with us for the entire program, thank you so much for making it to DMs with PM for yet another week. Next Tuesday, we'll be right back here, same time, same place, to do it all over again. And like we said, though it's called DMs with PM, there will be times the PM will not be available and someone will have to sit in the chair in his stead. All right? So I hope we were able to do that today. And of course, looking forward to having you back again. Once again, happy birthday, PM. And again, to everyone viewing and listening, thank you so much. Have yourselves a great Tuesday.